Alien girl of high standing asked the human for help, but what she offered back was the twist. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole moved through the dim service corridor of Halion, for with a flashlight clenched between his teeth, its beam jittering across metal panels worn smooth by decades of neglect. The air felt cold enough to bite, a thin mist drifting from a cracked coolant pipe overhead. Every footstep echoed like the station itself was holding its breath. He paused, adjusting the strap of his tool bag digging into his shoulder, and wiped a streak of engine dust from his wrist. Another night, another emergency, another call no one else wanted to answer. That was how he lived. Unnoticed, underpaid, and indispensable only when something broke at the worst possible hour. He ducked under a dangling cable, its fibers glowing faintly blue, and reached the malfunctioning pressure junction. The gauge flickered between warning colors. He exhaled, steadying himself. The rest of the station slept comfortably above him, wrapped in warmth and artificial sunlight. Down here, the hum of machinery was the only heartbeat he knew. A soft chime cut through the corridor. Not mechanical, not familiar. Ethan turned. A tall figure stood at the far end of the hall, haloed by the pale glow of emergency lights. Her skin held a blue-silver shimmer, almost reflective, like moonlight coating water. Her posture was regal but tense, as though she'd stepped somewhere she wasn't meant to be. He recognized her instantly from the public screens. Lythra Vale, a high-standing member of the Tri-Tri's Council. Someone who should never have been alone in a restricted maintenance wing. Someone far, far above a night shift mechanic like him. Ethan Cole. Her voice was calm, but edged with urgency. She knew his name. That alone knocked the air from his lungs. I need your help, she continued, glancing toward a sealed panel behind her. My personal biosync module is malfunctioning. The automated systems locked me out, and the security team is unavailable. Ethan blinked, unsure whether he should salute, bow, or run. Ma'am, this area isn't safe for you. I'm aware, she said, stepping closer. The corridor's cold light slid across her features, poised, composed, but undeniably worried. That's why I came to find you. He swallowed, gripping his tools tighter. High-standing officials didn't look for people like him. They didn't need to. Yet here she was, waiting for his answer in the chilled metal dark. All right, he said quietly. Show me the problem. As she led him deeper into the corridor, her footsteps barely making a sound, Ethan couldn't shake the strange feeling settling over him. Like the night had just shifted, like the air itself knew something he didn't. He had no way of knowing that helping her would upend the invisible wall between their worlds, and that what she offered him in return would change the course of his life in a way no promotion or paycheck ever could. The sealed panel that Lythra indicated sat flush against the corridor wall, its status lights flickering between amber and a soft blue that did not belong there. Ethan crouched beside it, setting his tool bag down gently so the metal would not echo in the quiet hall. He felt her presence behind him, steady and composed, but with a faint tension in the air that reminded him she was far from her usual orbit of control. This module regulates my biosync readings, she explained, her voice low and even. It should not be failing. Not here, not tonight. Ethan pressed his palm against the panel. The warmth was uneven, pulsing in a strange rhythm. Something is overloading the internal pathways, he said. Did anything unusual happen before it malfunctioned? Lythra hesitated, then shook her head. Nothing that should affect a system like this. He retrieved a diagnostic wand, its tip glowing a soft white as it scanned the seams. The device hummed, lights shifting to a worried pattern. Ethan frowned. It is not responding to standard commands. It is as if it does not recognize the station's main network. A soft breath left her, almost inaudible. Can you open it manually? Maybe, he said, but it will take a moment. While he worked, he felt her gaze on him, not impatient but searching, like she was trying to understand something. That had nothing to do with tools or wires. The corridor lights dimmed another fraction, a reminder of the failing system far above their heads, but Ethan kept his focus tight. One steady motion after another. One careful adjustment. Why were you alone? He asked quietly, still working. Lithra was silent long enough that he wondered if he had crossed a line. Then she answered, her tone softer. There are matters within the council that require discretion. And sometimes discretion means walking unaccompanied. Ethan glanced back at her. She stood tall, hands folded in front of her, but her eyes told a different story. Not fear, not arrogance. Something weightless and heavy all at once. Trust, maybe, or the beginning of it. The diagnostic wand beeped, drawing his attention. He pressed 2 fingers under the panel's edge, found a recessed latch, and eased it open. The interior chamber breathed out a cool rush of air, and a soft glow spilled onto his hands. The module looked intact, but its core pulsed with a faint silver light. Not standard. Not station-issued. Ethan swallowed. This is advanced, he murmured. What kind of biosync tech is this? Lithra stepped closer, the shimmer of her skin catching the cold corridor light. One that should not fail, she said quietly. He adjusted a small connector, watching the glow shift. It is trying to recalibrate, but something is interfering. She watched him for a long moment. Why are you not asking questions about my status or authority? He tightened a screw gently. Because right now, you need help. Everything else can wait. Something in her expression softened, like a tension easing. A moment passed between them, silent but full. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. All right, he said. Let us see if we can bring this back online. And as the module's glow pulsed once, then steadied, he felt the strange certainty that whatever he had stepped into tonight reached far beyond loose wires and flickering lights, and that this connection between them, unexpected and fragile, was only beginning. The module's silver glow steadied for a moment, then fluttered again like a breath caught halfway. Ethan adjusted another connector with careful pressure, feeling the faint vibration through his fingertips. The air in the maintenance hall remained cool, the distant hum of the station blending with the soft electronic pulse in front of him. Behind his shoulder, Lithra stood close enough that he could sense the quiet tension in her posture, a contrast to the composed authority she carried everywhere else on the station. It is still unstable, Ethan murmured. Whatever is causing this is not internal. It feels like something upstream is interfering. Lithra tilted her head, the reflection of the module lighting her features in shifting silver. The council uses encrypted lines for my equipment. Could the station's older systems be crossing them? Maybe, Ethan said. But the interference looks intentional, like the signal is being pulled in 2 different directions. He felt her gaze sharpen. Do you mean tampering? I mean something does not add up, he replied. But we are not going to assume anything until we stabilize it. He reached deeper inside the panel, fingers brushing a small junction where the glow softened. A faint tone chimed as if recognizing his touch, and the light steadied for a second longer. Lithra stepped closer, her voice measured but carrying a quiet sincerity. I appreciate what you are doing. Ethan shook his head lightly. It is just my job. No, she said softly. It is more than that. Most would not step into this situation without demanding an explanation or calling for someone with higher status. Ethan kept working, but he felt the weight of her words settle over him. Well, he said after a moment, I prefer to look at what someone needs, not what they represent. The silence that followed was gentle, almost warm, despite the chill drifting from the coolant pipe above them. Lithra watched his hands as he worked, her expression thoughtful. Human culture still confuses me at times, she admitted. You follow rules, yet you break them to help. You hold no authority, yet you act as though you carry a duty greater than your rank. Ethan pulled a small conductor free and replaced it with one from his kit, the glow strengthening in response. I do not think duty cares about job titles, he replied quietly. If something needs fixing, you fix it. If someone needs help, you help them. She studied him with an intensity that made the corridor feel smaller, as if the hum of the station had faded to make room for the exchange. Perhaps that is why I came to find you, she said. Not because of your position, but because of the way you treat the things under your care. His breath caught slightly at the honesty in her tone. Before he could respond, the module emitted a soft, rising pulse. Ethan leaned in, watching as the lights cycled through their calibration sequence. It is stabilizing, he said. Just a little more. He tightened one last screw, and the glow smoothed into a steady, even rhythm. The tension in Lithera's shoulders eased visibly. You restored it, she said, almost in disbelief. For now, Ethan replied. But this was not a simple malfunction. Something caused the drift, and we need to figure out what. She nodded slowly, her expression shifting into something deeper, more contemplative. Then we will figure it out together. Ethan closed the panel and gathered his tools, feeling the weight of her words follow him like a quiet promise. And though the station remained cold around them, he sensed something unmistakable warming the air between their worlds, something fragile but real, forming one steady pulse at a time. The walk back through the maintenance corridor felt different now, as if the air carried a quieter hum, one shaped by the steady rhythm of the repaired module and something unspoken beneath it. Ethan kept his tools in hand, more out of habit than need, while Lithera walked a step behind him, her stride calm but thoughtful. The soft blue-silver shimmer of her skin picked up reflections from the emergency lights overhead, creating the impression of moving moonlight trailing after him. When they reached a small service alcove where the station's noise softened, Lithera paused. Ethan stopped too, turning slightly toward her. For a moment neither spoke. She ran her palm lightly across the wall panel, her touch so controlled that it barely triggered the motion sensor. The recalibration will hold for now, Ethan said. But something initiated that drift. We cannot ignore that. Lithera nodded slowly. You are right. This was not a simple issue. She looked at him with a steady calm that held no arrogance. Ethan, would you allow me to show you something? He blinked. Show me. Your work just now, she said gently, was more than corrective. You sensed the distortion before any device did. That intuition is rare. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a little self-conscious. I just listened to the system. It tends to tell you when it is unhappy. Her lips curved in a faint, almost invisible smile. Precisely. She stepped into the alcove's center and activated a hidden panel with a two-finger gesture. A soft sphere of pale light rose from the floor, projecting a swirling pattern in the air, like threads of silver drifting in slow motion. Ethan watched the shapes twist, crossing and recrossing each other with delicate precision. What is this? He asked quietly. It is my biosync signature, she replied. A reflection of my internal rhythm. It should remain stable unless confronted with interference. The threads pulsed, shifting from silver to a faint blue. Ethan narrowed his eyes. I saw that same color shift in your module. Yes, she said, and I do not understand why. Ethan stepped closer to examine the projection, careful not to disturb its glow. The weaving patterns reminded him of cooling lines in an engine, except these were alive, subtle, and impossibly intricate. This looks like two frequencies trying to align but failing, he said. One is yours. The other one, he hesitated. I cannot tell, but it is not part of the system. Lithera studied him with a look he could not quite decipher. You see it clearly. It is just a guess, he said, but it is consistent. The projection dimmed, folding back into the sphere of light. The alcove felt dimmer without it. Lithera stood still for a long moment before speaking. There are things expected of those in my position, she said quietly. Decisions, alliances, signs of loyalty. My biosync signature is monitored by many who outrank me. If it drifts, they will ask questions. Ethan met her eyes. Questions you do not want them asking. She nodded once. Not yet. He took a slow breath. Then we need to keep this stable until we know what caused it. And you should not be alone in restricted areas again. Her gaze softened the slightest amount. Are you offering to accompany me on matters like this? If you need the help, he answered. She considered him, her expression unreadable but warm at the edges. Then yes, Ethan Cole, she said. I believe I do. In the faint hum of the alcove, their shared purpose settled into the quiet space between them, steady and sure, like a bridge forming where no bridge should exist. The hum of the alcove faded as Ethan and Lithera stepped back into the main corridor, the overhead lights stabilizing to their usual soft white glow. The station felt quieter than before, as if the walls themselves were listening. Lithera walked beside him with a calm grace, but there was a new stillness in her stride, one that suggested she was processing more than the technical details of her malfunctioning biosync. Ethan kept his tools tucked under his arm, his thoughts circling the projection she had shown him. The intricate silver threads, the drifting pulse, the faint disruption he had seen so clearly. Human intuition, she had called it. To him, it had simply felt like listening. They reached a junction where a broad observation window overlooked a stretch of open space. The stars hung motionless beyond the glass, scattered across the dark like distant sparks from a welding arc. Lythra paused there, her gaze tracing the constellations only her people could name. Ethan glanced at her reflection in the window. The blue-silver shimmer of her skin blended with the starlight, giving her an almost ethereal outline. "Does it bother you?" Ethan asked quietly. "Knowing something is interfering with your systems." She folded her hands, considering the vast view before them. "It does," she admitted. "Not out of fear, but because it suggests that someone or something believes they can manipulate what is meant to remain private." Ethan nodded, leaning lightly on the rail. Privacy is a rare thing on a station like this. Everything runs through the same veins of wiring and data flow. Her eyes softened as she looked at him. "And yet you noticed what the system did not." He shrugged slightly. "I just trust what I feel in the equipment. Machines do not lie. They just struggle. A trait they share with many people," she said quietly. For a moment the silence deepened, but not uncomfortably. It wrapped around them like a pause in conversation that both felt but neither needed to fill. Lythra reached for the small identification orb at her waist, tapping a sequence that made its surface glow. A delicate hologram sprang to life above it, forming a circular pattern of flowing symbols. Ethan frowned. "Is that another diagnostic?" "It is a trace log from the last 20 hours, she said. "I wanted to confirm whether the drift in my biosync was isolated to that single module." The symbols shifted, aligning into a clean pattern. Then at the far edge, a faint distortion appeared, subtle but persistent. Ethan leaned closer. "There, that same ripple." Lythra nodded. "It began before the module failed." "Which means the issue is broader," Ethan said. "Not just that one panel." "Correct." She closed the hologram with a gentle motion, the symbols dissolving like mist. "If someone is observing my systems without authorization, they may know more than they should." Ethan straightened, sensing the weight behind her words. "And you cannot report it." "Not until I understand it fully," she replied. "Any accusation from someone in my position must be exact. Otherwise it can damage alliances that extend far beyond this station." Ethan looked back at the stars, letting the quiet stretch. "Then we will track it down," he said. "Signal by signal. Thread by thread." Lythra watched him with an expression that held something new, something almost warm. "You speak as though you have already agreed to help me." "I thought that was clear," Ethan said with a gentle exhale. "You should not face this alone." Her voice softened. "It is unusual for someone without rank to say that so easily." "Rank does not fix problems," he replied. "People do." A faint brightness touched her eyes, like the glint of starlight reflecting off water. "Then I am glad it was you in that corridor tonight." The station lights dimmed for night cycle, casting a soft gradient of blue across the hallway. Ethan felt the air shift, calm and steady. And in that moment, standing beside someone from a world he had never seen, he sensed that whatever path lay ahead, technical, political, or something more quietly human, they had already stepped onto it together. Night cycle settled fully over Helion, for as Ethan and Lythra moved away from the observation window, their steps echoing softly along the curved walkway. The station's automated lighting shifted into a muted blue tone that made every surface feel calmer, quieter, as if the entire structure were intentionally lowering its voice. Lythra walked with her hands loosely clasped, her expression thoughtful. Ethan could sense she was weighing something, the way her gaze lingered on small details as they passed. A flicker in an overhead panel, the faint hum of a climate regulator, the subtle shift in the floor beneath them. He knew that look. He had worn it many times while diagnosing problems the system had not yet admitted it had. "If the drift began hours before your module failed," Ethan said, "it means the signal is being influenced from a consistent point, something that touches your systems often." Lythra nodded slowly. "That narrows it to a handful of sources. Council interfaces, diplomatic channels, personal data lines. Or something connected indirectly," Ethan added. "Something that reads your biometrics for clearance." Her eyes shifted to him. "You believe the interference could come from the station itself?" "Not the station," he clarified, "but something riding on its network." She absorbed that in silence. They reached a landing area where the corridor widened, the soft glow of night lights pooling across the smooth floor. An unattended console rested against the wall, its interface dimmed. Ethan tapped it awake and brought up a maintenance overlay. Lines of data floated upward like quiet streams. Lithra stepped beside him, close enough that he could feel a trace of her energy, a warmth that contrasted with the station's cold recycled air. "Look here," Ethan said, pointing to a thin, oscillating line in the data. "This pattern repeats, at even intervals. It matches the timing of the drift you showed me." She leaned closer, her gaze intent. "This is not part of the station's authorized pathways." "Exactly," Ethan said. "It is subtle enough to look like normal activity unless you track it over time." She watched the pattern repeat again, the small rise and fall almost too smooth. Who would design something to mimic a system heartbeat? "Someone who wants it to be ignored," Ethan replied. "Or someone who does not want you to know they are watching." Lithra held his gaze for a moment, and the quiet between them deepened. Not with fear, but with understanding. "Ethan," she said softly, "there is something else I must ask you." He waited. "In your work," she continued, "have you ever felt that a system behaved differently when certain people interacted with it? As if the network recognized them and altered itself in response?" Ethan thought back to years of repairs, midnight malfunctions, quiet anomalies he had chalked up to old wiring or overworked controllers. "Yes," he admitted. "Sometimes it feels like the station knows who is touching it. I always assumed it was just wear and tear, but now it aligns with what I have been sensing," she said. "My biosync is more than an identification tool. It is tied to protocols that determine my access, my movements, even my communications." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Then whoever is creating this drift might know exactly when you are vulnerable. And how often?" Lithra lifted her chin, her expression steady despite the implication. "Which means we must move carefully and quietly." Ethan closed the console and let darkness settle back over the screen. "Then we keep tracking it," he said. "We follow every signal until we find the source." Her voice softened, becoming something almost warm. "You continue to choose to help me, even when you understand the complexity of what stands behind my role." "I am choosing to help the person who asked," Ethan replied. "Not the title." For the first time since he had met her, Lithra's expression shifted into an unmistakable, genuine calm. "Then let us continue," she said. "Together." And in the quiet glow of the night cycle, the fragile alliance between an overlooked mechanic and a high-standing envoy settled into place with a steadiness neither had expected, woven from trust, intuition, and the faint echo of something beginning to grow. Helion, 4 shifted into its late-night cycle fully now, the corridors quiet enough that Ethan could hear the faint rhythmic pulse of the life support systems beneath the floor. He walked beside Lithra through a narrow access hall that technicians rarely used after hours, its lighting reduced to a gentle glow that blurred the edges of their shadows. The subtle hum of the station wrapped around them like a low whisper. Lithra paused near a sealed door etched with authorization markings that shimmered faintly in her presence. "This chamber contains the upper-tier relay systems," she said. "It processes the encrypted channels tied to my council status." Ethan studied the door's surface. "Then if something or someone is intercepting your biosync, this is the closest point we can observe without triggering alarms." She inclined her head. "Exactly." Ethan withdrew a handheld analyzer from his bag and powered it on. The device cast a soft ring of white light around them, illuminating the dustless metal floor and the smooth lines of the access panel. Lithra watched him work, her posture poised but not distant. There was a quiet trust now, an unspoken comfort that had not existed when they first met in the cold corridor earlier that night. Ethan placed the analyzer near the lower base of the door. The screen responded with an immediate ripple of interference, sharper than he expected. "There it is," he murmured. "Same signal pattern. Same false heartbeat." Lithra leaned closer, her voice low. "But it should not be present here. This relay is shielded from external influence." Ethan turned the analyzer slightly, watching the waveform distort and then settle again. "It looks like whatever is causing this is not attacking your system. It is following it." She was silent for a long moment, her expression narrowing as she considered the implications. "A tracking signature," she said finally. "Subtle, adaptive, designed to blend into my natural readings so it does not create alerts." Ethan nodded. "Someone wants to know where you are at all times." Lithra looked down at the shimmering surface of the door, her features lit by the analyzer's pale glow. There are members of the council who consider my presence here unconventional. Some prefer that my decisions remain predictable. Others prefer that I fail. Ethan felt a quiet weight settle in his chest. And you think one of them would do this? I think, she said carefully, that someone underestimated the consequences of using such a tool, especially now that it interferes with my systems. Ethan turned off the analyzer, the light fading back into the dim corridor glow. If we want to cut this tracking signature off, we need to isolate your biosync from the relay long enough to flush the false signal, which requires manual disengagement, she said. From inside the chamber. Ethan frowned softly. That means someone with proper clearance has to authorize a temporary disconnect. Someone who will not question why. Lithra held his gaze steadily. I can grant you access. He blinked. Me? You have no political ties, she said. No affiliations. No incentives to manipulate my systems. That makes you the safest option. Ethan swallowed, the responsibility settling through him like a slow drop of weight. If you trust me with that level of access, I do, she said, her voice quiet but certain. Tonight you have already seen more than most are allowed, and you have treated it with respect. She raised her hand to the door, and the authorization markings brightened in a cascading wave of silver light. The chamber unlocked with a soft tone. We proceed together, she said. Ethan stepped beside her, the door sliding open to reveal rows of softly glowing conduits that pulsed like the quiet heartbeat of the station. And as they crossed the threshold, he understood that whatever waited beyond this point was no longer just a technical issue. It was the moment their separate worlds fully intersected, not by rank or duty, but by choice. Inside the relay chamber, the air felt different, carrying a quiet tension beneath the steady hum of energy coursing through the conduits. Rows of softly illuminated panels stretched along the walls, each pulsing in gentle intervals that resembled breathing more than machinery. Ethan stepped forward with careful precision, his boots making almost no sound on the polished floor. Lithra followed beside him, her presence steady and composed, yet her eyes revealed the weight of what they had uncovered. She guided him to a central console shaped like a circular platform with a waist-height control ring. Embedded symbols glowed faintly at her approach, responding to her biosync even through the interference. This interface is connected to my diplomatic channels, she explained quietly. It should remain inert unless I initiate a transmission. Ethan raised the handheld analyzer again, its soft ring of light scanning the surface. Immediately, the waveform shifted, showing the same subtle false heartbeat pattern weaving through the system. There it is, he said. This signature is coming straight from the relay's core. Lithra watched the distortion with a controlled breath, meaning the interference is built into a system designed to be untouchable. Ethan lowered the analyzer and gave her a steady look. We can still isolate it, but the only way to shut it out completely is to temporarily sever your biosync from the central network. She held his gaze. Doing so will render me untrackable, even to those who expect constant awareness of my movements. Is that a problem? Ethan asked gently. It is a risk, she admitted, but one I am willing to take. She placed her palm on the console. The symbols brightened to a rich silver glow, acknowledging her authority. A soft tone rose from the floor, signaling that the system awaited the second required participant. Lithra turned to Ethan, her expression calm but earnest. Your biometric signature will anchor the disengagement. Without it, the system will not permit isolation. Ethan blinked once, surprised. You want me to link with a council interface? I trust your intention, she said simply, and the system will recognize your neutrality. Ethan placed his hand beside hers on the control ring. The console warmed under their combined touch. Above them, a faint projection formed, displaying two overlapping patterns, Lithra's intricate silver rhythm and Ethan's simpler, steady pulse. The relay began its disengagement cycle, strands of light separating slowly from one another. But halfway through the process, the projection shifted unexpectedly. Ethan watched as a third pattern flickered at the edges, faint but unmistakable. There it is again, he said. That extra signal. Lithra's eyes narrowed. It is attempting to reconnect. It should not be able to do that. Ethan pressed deeper into the console's surface. If it pulls your biosync back in, we lose our chance. We need to force a clean separation before it stabilizes. Lithra drew a slow breath and closed her eyes. The silver glow around her intensified, her natural rhythm strengthening as she pushed back against the foreign signal. Ethan felt the console vibrate under their hands, not violently, but with the pressure of two opposing forces meeting. He steadied his breathing, letting his own simple pulse hold constant. The projection flickered again, then finally split apart. The third pattern collapsed like a broken thread. The chamber dimmed to normal light. The console released their hands with a gentle click. Ethan exhaled. Your biosync is free. Nothing is following you now. Lithra opened her eyes, the glow around her fading into its usual soft shimmer. Ethan, she said quietly, do you know what you have just done? He frowned. I isolated a signal. You restored my autonomy, she corrected softly. For someone in my position, that is far more than a simple repair. Ethan looked at her, the meaning settling in slowly, steadily, like the echo of something important taking shape. Lithra stepped back from the console, her expression gentle but unmistakably moved. I owe you more than you realize, she said. And in the cool white glow of the relay chamber, the truth of that settled between them. Quiet, undeniable, and deeper than either of them had intended when the night began. The relay chamber settled into a calm stillness, the soft glow from the conduits dimming as the system accepted its new configuration. Ethan stepped back from the console, letting the tension ease from his shoulders. The space felt lighter now, as if an unseen weight had been lifted from the air. Lithra remained quiet. For a moment, her gaze lingering on the faint silver traces still fading from the holographic projection above the platform. When she finally turned toward him, her expression held a depth that made the room feel even more still. Ethan, she said gently, you have given me something tonight that very few in my position ever receive. Privacy. Freedom, even if only in the smallest measure. He shook his head slightly. It was the right thing to do. Perhaps, she said. But it was not the expected thing. She stepped closer, the silver shimmer of her skin catching the soft light, bending it across her features in waves of blue and white. Most people who encounter someone of my standing see only the title, the authority, the expectations. But you saw the problem first, the person behind it second, and only then the status. Ethan met her eyes. Status does not make someone more important. A faint breath escaped her, almost like a laugh but softer, touched with something nearly fragile. In my world, that perspective is rare. The chamber's lights shifted as the station updated its cycle, casting a pale glow across the floor. Lithra reached into the inner pocket of her formal mantle and withdrew a small crystalline object, no larger than her palm. It glowed with a gentle inner light, swirling in slow patterns that matched the rhythm Ethan had seen earlier in her biosync signature. She held it carefully between them. This is a council identisphere, she said. It serves as both a personal key and a symbol of trust. No one outside the council carries one. Ethan's brows lifted, confusion and caution flickering across his features. Lithra, I cannot take something like that. You misunderstand, she said softly. I am not giving it to you to keep. I am offering it to you as acknowledgement. She extended it closer, the crystal's glow warming the space between their hands. When a member of my people offers this to another, it means they are seen. Their actions recognized at a level far deeper than protocol. It is the gesture of honor. Ethan hesitated only a moment before lifting his hand. She placed the sphere in his palm. The crystal responded instantly, glowing brighter as if recognizing his touch. Ethan felt a faint vibration, almost like a pulse. Lithra watched him with an expression that held gratitude, respect, and something more quiet beneath it. If anyone were to ask why my system stabilized tonight, she said, I will tell them the truth. That a human mechanic with no rank and no privilege saved my autonomy, because he believed it was the right thing to do. Ethan looked at the glowing sphere, then back at her. I did not expect anything in return. I know, she replied. That is why it matters. She closed his fingers gently around the identisphere before drawing her hand back, her expression soft but steady. What you offered me tonight cannot be measured in titles or favors. And what I offer you in return is simple. Her voice lowered, carrying a sincerity that resonated through the quiet chamber. When someone asks who I trust on this station, your name will be the first one I speak. Ethan felt the weight of that, not heavy, but grounding, like a truth he had not realized he needed to hear. They stood together in the soft white glow of the relay chamber, the hum of the station steady around them. No words followed. None were needed. The silence carried meaning on its own, a quiet acknowledgement between two worlds that had unexpectedly met in the narrow space between duty and humanity.